Without question, the most critical forewarning at this time prophetically is already written in the Old Testament in Daniel chapter 9, verses 26 and 27. This is what constitutes these two verses as being a divine forewarning to Israel, since the verses are actually written in the Bible's Old Testament. The fact that God placed this forewarning in the Holy Bible over 2,600 years ago is in itself a significant point showing God's favor and His mercies 26 centuries in advance, so people would not be fooled, but would actually be keen with understanding about what is inevitably adjacent to this generation today, specifically being the 7-year tribulation and the second judgment upon earth and the nearing return of the Lord Jesus Christ. In fact, Daniel's divine forewarning is not only for today's end-time Jews of Israel, but is also equally as vital to today's end-time generation as a whole. But Daniel's two verses not only pointedly identify the 7-year tribulation period, which is the next major event to occur in today's generation, biblically, but Daniel's two verses also clearly name both parties who will ultimately sign the 7-year agreement, which virtually begins the final 7-year tribulation period. History today clearly proves that the popes of Rome are exactly what Daniel stipulated as being what Daniel called the prince who is to come in Daniel chapter 9 verse 26. And then in the same verse, Daniel specifically names the very origin of this forthcoming evil world icon as being from Rome. This is proven since Daniel states in advance that the 70 A.D. Jerusalem temple, which was destroyed by the Roman Empire, would be the actual original people, Daniel stated, from who the eventual prince who is to come would arise. Again, this is all in verse 26 of Daniel chapter 9. As previously mentioned, Daniel's world icon from Rome, who was also one and the same man with the New Testament's Antichrist, would be the co-signer of the end-time 7-year agreement with the Jews of Israel. Today, and as precisely foretold by Daniel and the book of Revelation, both parties, Israel's Knesset and the Vatican of Rome, are already in intensified discussions to finalize the fundamental agreement of 1993 and 1994, which was authored by John Paul II. This in itself could incorporate the larger scope of the foretold 7-year Mideast Peace Pact, or the fundamental agreement could be a springboard template towards the coming 7-year agreement between Israel and the sitting Pope of Rome. Either way, this generation is now living in the narrowing gap of time adjacent to the forewarned 7-year tribulation period. Also highly significant is the fact that today's negotiations between the Vatican and Israel are so progressed that even if Benedict XVI himself were to die or suddenly retire, then any subsequent pope could easily step in and carry out the foreordained signing with Israel of the coming 7-year agreement identified in Daniel chapter 9 verses 26 and 27.